Everyone got off their perch and sat back down in the snow and dirt. It was cold in this area, but everyone was hanging in there. Hopefully they'd be inside soon. He knew his weapon was oiled with a special compound that wouldn't clump up at this temperature, but he wasn't sure if everyone else's were. Hopefully there wouldn't be any critical weapon malfunctions. He couldn't worry about it, though, and looked onward. Doug spoke first. That was definitely them. Someone else spoke. Did you see that crazy sci-fi cannon? A third said, I have 300 blackout subsonic rounds and a cannon on my rifle that would make this whisper quiet. Doug thought about the options. We need to take them out quietly, but we need people close enough to capitalize on the advantage. Everyone nodded, and Doug continued. Let's get up close. 2 3-man teams, an overwatch for each. Do we have anyone else with a suppressed rifle? Everyone else confirmed. Yes, I have one. It's all set up for suppressed subsonic as well. Doug responded. Okay, cool. Your second overwatch then. Is that cool? The guy nodded. They broke into 2 3-man teams, one for each entrance. One would take the front, the other would take the back. One of the overwatch stayed. They prepared to follow the 3-man team. They broke into 2 3-man teams, one for each entrance. One would take the front, the other would take the back. One of the overwatch stayed, and they prepared to follow the 3-man team. I think I just said that. I apologize. Doug thought, then spoke. Check your watches. We go in exactly 3 minutes before the hour. That gives everyone time to get in place. Remember, the security systems are down. The facility is under manual control. They all checked their watches and nodded as Doug spoke. Their watches all constantly auto-syncing with each other over local Wi-Fi. Someone said, see you guys on the other side. They all nodded, and the 2 teams separated and got into position. Doug's team on the side that had the weird cannon on it. The other team circled around to the front entrance, and everyone waited. Doug had eyes on the 2. They looked pretty exhausted, and they were chatting. Doug could hear them a little bit. Something about a revolution that was coming up, and how this would ensure power to the new region they were forming. Doug rolled his eyes and forgot all about Challenger. She was laying down next to him, listening to the separatists also. Challenger seemed to understand that they were the enemy right away. Doug watched them and checked his watch, trying to hide its light from sight. It was very cold out and very windy. Doug regretted leaving his windbreaker at camp, but it would be too noisy here. It felt at least 0, if not slightly colder. Challenger seemed to not even notice, though he could see barely that her fur was getting rustled around. Doug's watch ticked the last few seconds, and it was time. They began to creep forward in the shadows as the sun started to crack the skyline with light. 2 barely audible shots rang out in succession, and the bodies by the cannon fell silently, the actions of the rifles making more noise than the bullets themselves. Doug and his 2 crewmates in Challenger all sprinted from cover and ran to secure the cannon as the bodies dropped. Doug thought he heard similar activity from around the building, but couldn't tell in the wind. Doug ran and stripped the bodies of weapons and ammo. Both bodies had identical patterned AKs. The AKs got slid into a corner for later. The bodies got tossed off the dam. Doug's 3rd teammate covered them. As Doug and his crew were doing that, several more bad guys rushed out of the structure. They were exhausted, and thus their reactions delayed. The reinforcements barely lasted a second apiece, and Doug's and his teammates' ensuing gunfire. The 3rd man on Doug's team quickly stopped temporarily to disable the MP cannon, as Doug and his other partner took aggressive covered positions. Doug's crew didn't have time to search these bodies, and they took sides on the door with Doug taking point. They were about to follow Doug's command to breach when Challenger heard something, broke formation, and ripped one of the downed separatists' throats out. She looked over at the body for a second, thought about it, then got back into breaching formation as if nothing had happened. A nervous chuckle crept from one of the other guys on the breaching team. Apparently he wasn't dead enough for your dog. Doug responded in jest quietly. He didn't need that throat anyway. The blood on Challenger's mouth gave her a big happy red smile as she sat ready for the next round. Doug heard a pat on the shoulder of the guy behind him, and then he got a pat on the shoulder. It was a steel door, but no way to lock it with the security system down. Doug opened it and moved forward to cover one angle, the guys behind him covering the other angle, and blind spot in the corner. Challenger came in last, starting to sniff around. Doug could hear yelling several rooms away and more gunfire. One of the rifles sounded like an AK pattern shotgun, and it was ridiculously loud and authoritative. It was possible that people trying to escape and running into the second crew or 2 engagement points. The second team would be on their own for now, though. Someone ran in and instantly took shots from Doug's 2 counterparts. Yes, there was a chance of them shooting their own guys, but they wouldn't breach rooms like that. Challenger grabbed the body and dragged it outside with the rest and then came back. Room by room, the 2 teams cleared until they had inadvertently worked their way to the control room. Both teams outside the control room, but from different entrances, and both could hear shuffling and breathing from the other room, despite all their ears ringing. Blue didn't, or blah blah. Doug didn't order his team in, and instead yelled, "Blue!" There was a pause. Then, 42 was yelled from the other room. Doug yelled, "Moving!" And there was a pause, and from the other room, he heard, "Go ahead." Everyone relaxed a little bit and moved in as predetermined code check was used. They had thankfully reached the second team. Challenger went to check every single person to see if they were okay, and everyone was. She started going to clear the other side herself, and within a few minutes, Challenger had dragged all the bodies into a pile outside by the cannon. There was an IT expert in the group, and he confirmed all the cameras and security were offline. Doug found a floor plan on the table where the bad guys had been trying to isolate where the engineers were hiding. There were only a few places left in the floor plans they hadn't checked. Doug didn't feel like trading people in an accidental fight with the engineers and came up with a plan. He asked the IT guy to patch him through to the radio, and he did. Doug spoke as calmly but succinctly through the intercom, which echoed through the whole facility. "Attention, hydroelectric dam employees. You are now free from the insurrectionists. We are hungry and tired. You are probably hungry and tired. We aren't coming to go get you, but we are here to rescue you," Doug continued. "We need to get enough of this turned back on so we can alert the powers that be that our mission was a success. They have the next part of the mission. We have injured that we need to move in here so they are safe. Don't know if you noticed, but it's really cold outside. We hope to talk to you as soon as you feel like coming out. Not going to mess with any of these systems or anything. We know how fragile it all probably is." Doug looked around and everyone either nodded or shrugged. Doug finished up. "Thank you again for your cooperation. We hope to have a replacement security team to you as soon as you come out and help us. Then we'll be out of your hair. Thank you for your time and cooperation. Feel free to come out anytime." Doug let go of the mic button and set the handset down. "Okay, guys, let's go notify Overwatch and get our buddies up in here and out of the cold." Chapter 21, Doug, in the coming hours. Day 2. Doug left a 3-man team and both Overwatch at the dam, and then took his 2 guys and Challenger back to base camp. The 2 final crew members that had been unconscious were now awake and uninjured. One turned out to be their demolitions expert, and the other was an expert in traps, snares, and the like. They were getting ready to go for a 3rd group to help when Doug and the team got back. Doug let them know that the area was secure and it was time to pack up and get to the dam. The trap expert went ahead and detected and marked every trap he could find on the handwritten map they were working on. Doug and the remainder of the team picked up the camp and put together the sleeping bags and tents and made sure everything miscellaneous was brought with. The fire had already been put out, and Doug used the paracord and carabiners and made another improvised sled, and Challenger dragged all the bags back up to the dam. They all met up back at the top, and the demolitions guy destroyed the EMP gun so nobody could use it. Doug got the sled off Challenger, who didn't mind it but was happy to get it off. They all helped carry the bags inside and set them up in the big conference room to dry out. The designated cook on the team had got everyone's random food together and made another meal out of it. They secured the entrances and had 2 guys with rifles on top, but didn't expect a second force to be attacking. All the weapons were collected and put in a pile. They were nearly all identically patterned AKs for the rifles. They were miscellaneous pistols, including some high points and some popular Austrian polymer pistols and some Makarovs. They eventually found the stash of weapons from the prior security team, which were all identically patterned MP5s. Hardly appropriate for these conditions. There were multiple thousands of rounds found for the AKs, but none found for the MP5s. Everyone thought this was weird and assumed the assault team grabbed all the 9mm for resupply. One of the teams eyeballed an MP5 and broke it down and stuffed the pieces in his pack. Everyone else shrugged. It wasn't like the guy was going to sell it. No doubt they'd be called again and expected to be ready, but then he remembered they were getting paid handsomely. He took the pieces back out, reassembled it, and threw it back on the pile with the rest. Doug suspected the engineers had hid themselves and whatever passed for the armory here, but I wasn't too worried about it. They ate and rotated guard shifts and relaxed in the warmth and hum of the dam. It wasn't long before they heard a big vault door open deeper in the dam, and everyone tensed up for a second and then relaxed. Doug spoke. "We can't scare them and make them think it's a trick, so let's relax and let them get comfortable so we can work together." Everyone nodded.